Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of Charles Dickens's most unsettling ghost stories, The Trial for Murder. It's a story that really makes you question what's real, blurring that line between a spirit looking for justice and the dark, spooky corners of a guilty conscience.
So, Dickens kicks things off with this really smart observation. He basically says that most of us, even the most logical people, are just too afraid to talk about our weirdest mental experiences. We're scared people will think we're crazy, and that hesitation, that fear of being ridiculed, is the perfect launching pad for the wild story our narrator's about to tell.
All right, so let's meet our guy. He's a London bachelor, a man of routine, totally sound of mind, but his very normal, orderly world is about to get completely turned upside down by a vision so vivid it feels more real than his own room, and he's decided he's going to be the one brave enough to tell us all about it.
So picture this. He's just sitting by his fire, reading the paper about this really awful murder, when something impossible happens. He describes it as a flash, rush, flow. The entire crime scene, the bedroom, the messed up sheets, the creepy shadows, it all just materializes and streams right through his own room like a projection.
As you can imagine, he's completely freaked out. The vision was so specific, he even noticed that the body wasn't on the bed where it should have been. So what was that? A waking dream, his mind playing tricks on him? Or was it the very first clue that something terrible had happened and needed to be put right?
Some naturally tries to shake it off. He looks out his window at the busy London street below. He's hoping the familiar sight of Piccadilly will bring him back to reality. But what he sees next is only going to drag him deeper into this whole mystery.
He spots these two men who seem to just glide through the huge crowd, but nobody else seems to notice them. The first guy has this dark, sinister look about him, and he's constantly looking back over his shoulder. The other one, with this pale, waxy face, is following close behind, looking super threatening. And as they pass by his window, they both just stop and stare right up at him.
Okay, so this is where it gets really creepy. The haunting isn't just some vision on a busy street anymore. It has now come into his home. As he's talking to his servant, his dressing room door just swings open, and there he is, the waxy-faced man from the street, standing there, silently waving him forward.
At this point, our narrator is probably thinking he's losing his mind, right? He desperately needs a reality check, so he reaches out and grabs his servant, Derek. But the second he touches him, it's like the vision transfers. The servant screams in pure terror because he sees the exact same thing. This is undeniably real now. It's a shared haunting.
So, just as he's trying to process this absolutely terrifying supernatural event, the normal, everyday world comes knocking. Literally. A summons for jury duty shows up at his door. His servant is sure it's a mistake, but the narrator, who's feeling kind of stuck in his boring life, just decides to go. He figures, hey, why not? It'll be a change of pace. He has no earthly idea what he's about to walk into. He walks into this packed courtroom, and his blood just turns to ice. The man on trial for that exact murder he read about is the first man he saw on the street, the one with that dark, sinister look who kept looking over his shoulder.
And get this, the prisoner recognizes him too. The second the narrator's name is called for the jury, the prisoner completely freaks out, telling his lawyer he has to challenge that man. But there's no legal reason, so the challenge is denied. And in this insane twist of fate, our narrator is made the foreman of the jury. So now that he's the foreman, the narrator's private little haunting is about to get a lot more public. Well, at least for him. The visions start getting way more intense right there inside the courthouse. On the second day of the trial, he does something simple. He tries to count his fellow jurors and runs into a problem. No matter how many times he does it, he keeps getting 13 instead of the normal 12. His neighbor counts and gets 12, but our narrator feels this chilling certainty. A 13th person is coming. And sure enough, that night, the presence reveals itself. It's the man with the waxy face, the ghost of the murder victim, and he's silently moving through their sleeping quarters. But here's the thing, it completely ignores our narrator. Instead, it goes and stands at the bedside of each of the other 11 jurors. The next morning, every single one of them says they had a dream about the man who was murdered.
So the trial moves on, and a defense lawyer starts building his case. He suggests the victim wasn't murdered at all, but actually took his own life.
And at this point, the ghost decides it's done being a quiet observer.
The ghost appears right there next to the lawyer, and of course, only our narrator can see it. And it gives this horrifying, silent rebuttal, basically demonstrating how impossible it would have been for the wound to be self-inflicted.
And here's the wildest part. Nobody else can see the ghost, but everyone in the room can feel its presence. The lawyer stumbles over his words, a witness gets all confused on the stand, and even the judge complains about a sudden chill in the air right as the specter is leaning over his shoulder to read his notes. The ghost is literally tilting the scales of justice, and nobody even knows it's there.
This goes on for 10 grueling days. The trial just drags on, and the ghost is always there for our narrator, this silent force pushing back against every lie. Finally, the jury goes off to make its decision.
After some time, the jury comes back. They've reached a unanimous verdict, and as the foreman, it's up to our narrator to deliver that final judgment.
The moment the word guilty leaves his lips, the narrator sees the ghost one last time. It had been watching him the whole time, so intently. And now it seems like its job is done. It pulls a gray veil over itself and just vanishes. Its mission is complete.
But just when you think the story is finally over, Dickens hits us with one of the most brilliant twists in supernatural fiction. The judge asks the convicted murderer if he has anything to say.
The murderer doesn't confess. Oh no. Instead, he points directly at the narrator, the foreman, and accuses him of being a ghost. He claims that before he was even arrested, our narrator appeared in his room like a phantom and put a noose around his neck.
And that is where Dickens leaves us. So what really happened here? Was our narrator haunted by a victim's ghost, guiding him toward the truth? Or was the murderer so eaten up by his own guilt that his conscience actually projected itself onto a random face in a crowd, the face of the very man who would one day decide his fate? A premonition of his own doom. The story never tells us, and honestly that's what makes it so genius.